The church bell tolled ominously as Roscoe stood in the living room of his family's modest home in rural Ohio, his hands trembling as he faced his parents. "Mom, Dad, I'm gay," he blurted out, the words hanging in the air like a death sentence. In that instant, his father's face twisted into rage, and before Roscoe could explain, he was shoved out the door into the pouring rain, his belongings thrown after him like trash. Roscoe huddled under the awning of the old barn that night, the cold seeping into his bones as thunder cracked overhead. He was only 18, fresh out of high school, and the world he'd known had crumbled in seconds. His mother, tears streaming down her face, had whispered through the cracked door, "We can't have this sin in our house," before slamming it shut. The next morning, with nothing but a backpack and $50 from his savings, Roscoe hitched a ride to Cleveland, vowing never to look back. But the pain gnawed at him, the rejection from the people who were supposed to love him unconditionally. In the city, he crashed on a distant cousin's couch, a guy named Jake who barely knew him but had heard the family gossip. Jake was straight, married, but sympathetic. "Families can be assholes," he said, handing Roscoe a beer. "But you'll figure it out." Days turned into weeks, and Roscoe scoured the streets for work. He landed a job bussing tables at a dingy diner, the kind where truckers grumbled about politics and eyed him suspiciously when he didn't join in their crude jokes about women. The isolation hit hard. He'd always been the quiet kid, the one who excelled in art class but hid his sketches of male figures. Back home, his best friend Mike had been his anchor, the football star with a laugh that lit up rooms. They'd shared secrets under the stars, but Roscoe had never confessed his feelings, fearing exactly this kind of fallout. Now, alone in the urban sprawl, he wondered if Mike even knew what had happened. One evening, after a grueling shift, Roscoe wandered into a community center hosting an LGBTQ support group. The room was filled with faces like his, weary, defiant. There, he met Tyler, a confident 20-something with a sharp wit and a story of his own exile from a conservative family in Texas. Tyler worked as a barista but dreamed of acting. "Coming out isn't the end," Tyler told him over coffee later. "It's the start of owning your truth." Their conversations sparked something in Roscoe. For the first time, he felt seen. But trust didn't come easy. When Tyler leaned in for a kiss one night, Roscoe pulled back, flashbacks of his father's disgust flooding his mind. "I'm not ready," he admitted, and Tyler nodded, understanding the invisible scars. As months passed, Roscoe saved every penny, enrolling in night classes at a community college for graphic design. The work was therapeutic, channeling his turmoil into bold, abstract pieces that screamed of hidden identities. But the pressure-mounted bills piled up, and Jake's wife started hinting it was time for him to move out. Desperate, Roscoe applied for scholarships, pouring his heart into essays about overcoming familial rejection. To his shock, he won one from a progressive foundation, enough to afford a tiny studio apartment. It was a turning point, but the victory tasted bitter. He imagined sharing it with his parents, only to remember their silence. Meanwhile, back in Ohio, whispers spread through the town. Roscoe's father, a devout factory worker named Robert, drowned his guilt in beer, snapping at anyone who mentioned his son. His mother, Ellen, attended church more fervently, praying for forgiveness while secretly crying over old photos. They told neighbors Roscoe had chosen a different path, but the lie weighed on them. Robert's health declined, high blood pressure from the stress, but he refused to acknowledge the role his actions played. In Cleveland, Roscoe's friendship with Tyler deepened into something more tentative. They shared walks along Lake Erie, discussing dreams and fears. Tyler pushed Roscoe to confront his past, but Roscoe resisted. "What if they never change?" he asked. Tyler's response was simple. "Then you build a life without them." But Roscoe couldn't shake the longing for reconciliation. One night, after a heated argument with a homophobic customer at the diner, Roscoe quit on the spot, his fists clenched in rage. It was a reckless decision, but it forced him to hustle harder. He freelanced designs online, landing gigs for local businesses. Success trickled in, but so did doubt. Was he betraying himself by hiding parts of who he was to fit in? The climax of this chapter came when Roscoe received a letter from home, not from his parents, but from Mike. Heard what happened. Miss you, man. Come back. It read. Roscoe's heart raced. Mike, the one he'd loved in secret, but returning meant facing the demons he'd fled. He crumpled the paper, torn between hope and fear. As winter set in, Roscoe made a choice. He'd stay and fight for his future, but the pull of unresolved pain lingered, setting the stage for greater conflicts ahead. Roscoe stared at Mike's letter for days, the words blurring through tears he refused to shed. In Cleveland, life was a grind, but it was his. Yet the note stirred old flames, memories of stolen glances during football games. The way Mike's arm slung casually over his shoulder felt like home. Finally, he replied, "Can't come back yet. Too much hurt." Weeks later, Mike showed up unannounced at Roscoe's apartment, his pickup truck dusty from the drive. "I couldn't just let it go," Mike said, his voice thick with emotion. They talked until dawn, Mike admitting he'd always suspected but feared losing their friendship. That night shifted everything. Mike confessed his own confusion. He dated girls in high school to fit in, but felt empty. "Seeing you get kicked out woke me up," he said. Roscoe's heart soared, but caution held him back. They agreed to take it slow, Mike commuting on weekends. Their relationship blossomed in secret, stolen kisses in parks, late-night drives. But secrecy bred tension. Mike's family was even more conservative than Roscoe's, pillars of the community church. "If they find out, it'll destroy me," Mike whispered one evening. Roscoe thrived in his design classes, his portfolio growing with pieces inspired by their love, subtle abstracts of intertwined shadows. He landed an internship at a small ad agency, where his boss, a straight ally named Sarah, praised his talent. "You've got fire in you," she said. But the job exposed him to the city's vibrant gay scene, parties where openness reigned. Tyler, now a friend, invited him out, but Roscoe declined, loyal to Mike. Jealousy simmered when Mike canceled visits, citing family obligations. "You're hiding us," Roscoe accused during one call. Mike shot back, "I'm protecting us." Back in Ohio, Robert's health worsened. A minor heart scare landed him in the hospital. Ellen visited daily, her guilt manifesting in hushed prayers. She confided in the pastor, who preached forgiveness but warned against enabling sin. Robert, bedridden, grumbled about Roscoe, but Ellen saw the regret in his eyes. She drafted a letter to Roscoe but tore it up, fearing rejection. In Cleveland, the strain peaked when Mike's parents surprised him with a visit to his friend's place. They arrived as Roscoe and Mike shared a quiet dinner. The air thickened. Mike introduced Roscoe as an old buddy, but his mother's sharp eyes caught the intimacy. "What's really going on here?" she demanded. Mike panicked, denying everything. "He's just crashing here." Roscoe's world shattered, betrayed in his own home. He stormed out, wandering the streets until dawn. The next day, Mike begged forgiveness. "I froze. I'm not ready." Roscoe, hurt, demanded commitment. "Come out or we're done." Mike chose fear, returning to Ohio. Alone again, Roscoe threw himself into work, channeling pain into a series of designs critiquing societal hypocrisy. Sarah noticed his edge, promoting him to junior designer. Success came, but at a cost. Isolation deepened. He attended therapy, unpacking layers of trauma from his family's rejection and now Mike's cowardice. Months later, a breakthrough. Roscoe's art was featured in a local gallery show on LGBTQ themes. The opening night buzzed with energy. Tyler was there, supportive. But as Roscoe mingled, a familiar face appeared: Ellen, his mother, looking frail but determined. "I saw the ad in the paper," she said, tears welling. "I'm proud, but your father, he needs you." Roscoe's anger flared. "You threw me away." Their confrontation drew stares. Ellen pleaded for understanding, revealing Robert's failing health. "He regrets it all." Roscoe sent her away, but the encounter cracked his resolve. That night, he called Mike, who admitted he'd come out to his parents after their breakup, facing similar disownment. "Lost everything because of you," Mike said bitterly. Roscoe realized his ultimatum had pushed Mike into the fire unprepared. Guilt mixed with longing. They reconciled tentatively over the phone. But Roscoe knew healing required facing the past head-on. As his career ascended, whispers of a big city move to New York tempted him a fresh start, away from Ohio's ghosts. Yet the pull of unfinished business grew stronger, foreshadowing inevitable reckonings. New York's skyline loomed like a promise as Roscoe stepped off the train at Penn Station, his portfolio under one arm and a duffel bag over the other. 2 years had passed since the gallery confrontation with his mother, and in that time, he'd climbed the ranks at the agency, earning a transfer to their Manhattan office. The move was a calculated escape from Cleveland's reminders of Mike, from the stagnant pain of family estrangement. But New York demanded more. Rents were sky-high, and the pace was relentless. Roscoe shared a cramped apartment in Brooklyn with 2 roommates, both queer artists who embraced him like family. At work, he designed campaigns for progressive brands, infusing his work with subtle nods to identity struggles. His boss in New York, a gay man named Victor, became a mentor. "Your story fuels your art," Victor said during a late-night brainstorming session. "Use it." Roscoe did, but vulnerability scared him. He dated casually, but no one matched the depth he'd felt with Mike. Phone calls with Mike had dwindled. Last he'd heard, Mike was coaching high school football back in Ohio, living a double life to keep his job. One crisp autumn day, Roscoe received a call from an unknown number. It was Ellen. "Your father's had a stroke," she said, her voice breaking. "He's asking for you." Roscoe's stomach dropped. Part of him wanted to hang up, but curiosity, or perhaps lingering love, won. He booked a flight home, his mind racing with scenarios. What if it was a trap? What if forgiveness came too late? Landing in Ohio felt surreal. The familiar fields mocked his urban polish. At the hospital, Robert looked diminished, tubes snaking from his arms. Ellen hovered, wringing her hands. "He can't speak well, but he wrote this," she said, handing Roscoe a note. "Sorry. Come home." Roscoe's throat tightened. "Why now?" he demanded. Ellen confessed their regrets. Church friends had shunned them after rumors spread, forcing them to confront their bigotry. "We were wrong," she admitted. But Roscoe saw the manipulation. They needed him for support, not love. The visit turned explosive when Robert, in slurred words, blamed Roscoe's lifestyle for his stress. "You caused this," he muttered. Roscoe erupted. "I caused nothing. You chose hate over your son." He stormed out, but Ellen followed, begging him to stay. "We've changed," she claimed. Roscoe doubted it, returning to New York with fresh wounds. The encounter fueled a new project, a graphic novel outlining his journey, raw and unflinching. Mike reached out upon hearing of the visit. "I should have been there," he said. They met halfway in Pittsburgh for a weekend, rekindling old sparks. Mike had come out fully, losing his coaching job but finding work as a trainer in a more accepting gym. "It cost me everything," Mike said. "But I'm free." Their reunion was passionate, but reality intruded. Mike wanted Roscoe back in Ohio. Roscoe thrived in the city. "We can make it work," Mike insisted. Roscoe agreed to try long distance, but doubts lingered. Back in New York, Roscoe's graphic novel caught the eye of a publisher. Titled Shadows Unseen, it detailed familial betrayal, societal pressure, and the cost of authenticity. Reviews praised its emotional depth, but hate mail poured in anonymous threats from conservatives, decrying it as propaganda. Victor advised security, but Roscoe pressed on, speaking at events. One panel discussion turned heated when an audience member accused him of destroying families. Roscoe countered, "Families destroy themselves with hate." The success brought invitations to Ohio for book signings. Reluctantly, Roscoe agreed to one in Cleveland. There, Mike surprised him, along with Ellen. "Your father read your book," she said softly. It opened his eyes. Skeptical, Roscoe met Robert at home, where the old man, partially recovered, offered a halting apology. I was scared, Robert admitted. Didn't understand. For the first time, Roscoe saw vulnerability in his father, a man shaped by his own rigid upbringing. But reconciliation wasn't easy. Arguments flared over politics, religion. Roscoe challenged their views. Love isn't a sin. Slowly, bridges formed. Ellen joined a PFLAG group. Robert listened more. Mike moved to New York to be with Roscoe, a bold sacrifice. Together, they navigated the city's chaos. But Mike struggled with the anonymity, missing small-town roots. Tensions rose when Mike proposed cohabitation. Roscoe hesitated, fearing another betrayal. The chapter closed on a pivotal fight. Are we building a life or just pretending? Mike asked. Roscoe's silence spoke volumes, hinting at deeper fractures ahead. The graphic novel's release catapulted Roscoe into minor fame, with interviews on podcasts and local TV. In New York, he and Mike shared a cozy apartment in Greenwich Village, a hub of acceptance. But cracks appeared. Mike, uprooted from Ohio, felt lost in the bustle. I gave up my life for this, he snapped one evening after a failed job interview. Roscoe, buried in deadlines, retorted, I never asked you to. Their arguments escalated, echoing the internal conflicts Roscoe had buried fear of commitment born from past rejections. Professionally, Roscoe soared, landing a contract for a national campaign on LGBTQ rights. But the spotlight invited scrutiny. A conservative blogger dug into his past, outing his family's story without consent. Headlines screamed, Disowns' son exposes parents' bigotry. Calls flooded from Ohio, Ellen pleading for privacy. Robert furious at the betrayal. Roscoe hadn't intended the exposure. It was a leak from an old acquaintance. Guilt consumed him. Did I go too far? He confided in Victor. Mike urged reconciliation. Talk to them. They drove to Ohio together. A tense road trip filled with silences. At the family home, Robert greeted them warily, his stroke recovery evident in his limp. You aired our dirty laundry, he accused. Roscoe defended. It's my story too. The discussion turned raw. Mike shared his own losses, humanizing their struggle. Ellen, evolved through support groups, mediated. We've all paid prices. By night's end, a fragile truce formed, dinners planned, tentative acceptance of Roscoe and Mike as a couple. But societal pressures loomed. In town, old neighbors whispered, and Mike's former colleagues shunned him. Worth it? Roscoe asked. Mike nodded, but doubt flickered. Back in New York, Mike found work at a community center counseling queer youth. It fulfilled him, but resentment built when Roscoe's career demanded travel. You're always gone, Mike complained. Roscoe shot back. This is what success looks like. A turning point came at a gala where Roscoe was honored. Mike, proud but sidelined, drank too much and confronted Roscoe publicly. Am I just your accessory? Embarrassed, Roscoe pulled him aside. You're everything, he insisted. But the damage lingered. Therapy sessions revealed Mike's insecurities, feeling like the small-town guy next to Roscoe's rising star. Roscoe admitted his own fears. I push people away before they leave. Meanwhile, Robert's health stabilized, but he joined online forums, grappling with changing views. Ellen pushed him to attend Pride events, a shocking shift. They visited New York, awkward but earnest. Over dinner, Robert asked Mike about his journey, listening without judgment. Didn't realize the pain we caused, he said. Roscoe teared up, a moment of healing. But not all was mended. Arguments over faith persisted. The strain peaked when Roscoe was offered a book tour across the country. Mike, feeling neglected, issued an ultimatum. Choose us or the fame. Roscoe chose the tour, seeing it as validation. Alone, Mike returned to Ohio temporarily, helping his own estranged family. Distance bred reflection. Letters exchanged, apologies flowed. Roscoe realized success meant nothing without love. He cut the tour short, surprising Mike in Ohio. Their reunion was emotional, vows renewed. But external forces intruded. A lawsuit from the blogger for defamation, forcing Roscoe to relive traumas in court. Mike stood by him, testifying to the societal costs. The win was Pyrrhic. Media frenzy exposed more vulnerabilities. Back home, Robert defended Roscoe publicly in a local op-ed, a bold stand that cost him church friends. "My son's love isn't wrong," he wrote. As the dust settled, Roscoe and Mike planned a commitment ceremony, inviting families. Tension simmered. Robert hesitated on attending, citing moral qualms. Ellen pushed, "This is family." The chapter ended on the eve of the event, Roscoe pacing, "What if they don't come?" Mike's reassurance masked his own fears, building toward climactic confrontations. The commitment ceremony dawned bright in a quaint New York garden, fairy lights strung like stars. Roscoe adjusted his tie, nerves electric. Mike squeezed his hand. "We've earned this." Guests mingled: Victor, Tyler, Sarah, a tapestry of chosen family. But eyes darted to the entrance, waiting for blood relatives. Ellen arrived first, hugging them tightly. "I'm here for you both." Robert followed, stiff but present, a monumental step. The vows were heartfelt. Roscoe promised to cherish Mike's courage. Mike vowed to stand against storms. As they exchanged rings, Robert shifted uncomfortably, memories of his own wedding clashing with this untraditional union. During the reception, he pulled Roscoe aside. "I'm trying, son, but it's hard." Roscoe nodded. "That's enough for now." The night celebrated love's triumph, but undercurrents of unease persisted. Post-ceremony, life accelerated. Roscoe's book became a bestseller, spawning speaking engagements. Mike thrived in counseling, but the imbalance grated. "Your world's expanding, mine's shrinking," Mike admitted. Roscoe proposed therapy again, committing to balance. But fate intervened. Robert suffered another stroke, this one severe. Ellen called in panic. "Come quick!" Rushing to Ohio, Roscoe and Mike found Robert in ICU, prognosis grim. Bedside vigils revealed buried truths. Robert confessed regrets from his youth, a suppressed attraction he denied. "I projected my fears onto you," he whispered. Roscoe's anger melted into pity. "You could have chosen differently." Robert's passing days later shattered the family. At the funeral, Roscoe eulogized him honestly. He struggled, but in the end, he tried to love. Grief bonded them. Ellen moved to a senior community near New York for support. But Mike, dealing with his own family's lingering rejection, spiraled into depression. "Everything we fought for feels hollow," he said. Roscoe, overwhelmed by book promotions, snapped, "We can't stop now." Their fight escalated to separation talks. "Maybe we rushed," Mike suggested. Heartbroken, Roscoe agreed to space. Alone, Roscoe reflected on sacrifices, career over relationships. He poured emotions into a sequel novel, exploring moral ambiguities of forgiveness. Reviews debated, does redemption excuse harm? The discourse mirrored his life. Mike, back in Ohio helping Ellen, volunteered at a shelter, finding purpose. Letters between them evolved from pain to understanding. Reconciliation sparked when Roscoe visited for Ellen's birthday. Seeing Mike's growth, Roscoe admitted faults. "I prioritized ambition over us." Mike confessed, "I hid behind you." They rebuilt slowly, Mike moving back with conditions, equal partnership. But society struck again. A backlash campaign against Roscoe's work, petitions to ban his books in schools. Protests turned violent. Roscoe received threats. Mike insisted on protection. "No more risks." Roscoe refused. Backing down means they win. The standoff tested their bond. Ellen mediated, sharing her evolution. "I lost years to fear. Don't repeat my mistakes." The crisis peaked at a heated town hall in Ohio, where Roscoe debated critics. Mike joined him on stage, defending their love. A heckler shouted slurs. Chaos ensued. In the aftermath, Roscoe questioned everything. Is the fight worth the toll? Mike's answer, together, yes. They emerged stronger, but scarred. As years blurred, Roscoe's fame waned, replaced by teaching gigs. Mike opened a nonprofit for queer rural youth. Ellen became an advocate speaking at events. The family healed unevenly, debates ongoing. But a new conflict arose. Adoption discussions. Mike wanted kids. Roscoe feared passing on trauma. Can we break the cycle? Roscoe wondered. The chapter closed on their application process, uncertainties looming, leading to final revelations. Decades after that rainy night of disownment, Roscoe stood before his childhood home in Ohio, now a symbol of transformed lives. At 50, with graying hair and a lifetime of battles etched in his eyes, he knocked. Ellen, frail but spirited at 75, opened the door, embracing him. Inside, the house held echoes photos of their commitment ceremony, grandkids' drawings from the children he and Mike had adopted. But this visit carried weight. Roscoe had terminal cancer, a secret he'd kept until now. Flashbacks flooded. The early rejections, Mike's betrayals and redemptions, Robert's deathbed confessions. Their life in New York had been a mosaic of joys and sorrows. Raising twins, navigating prejudices in schools, celebrating anniversaries amid protests. Mike, ever the anchor, had pushed Roscoe through treatments, but now the prognosis was grim. We tell them together, Mike had insisted, but Roscoe chose this solo confrontation first. Ellen sensed the gravity. What's wrong? She asked. Roscoe revealed the diagnosis, watching her crumble. I came to say, I forgive you, he said. Tears flowed. Ellen admitted lingering guilt. We stole your youth, Roscoe countered, but we reclaimed the rest. They reminisced her advocacy work, how she'd marched in prides, challenging old friends. You taught me love's not conditional, she said. Mike arrived later, the twins in tow, teenagers now, aware of family history. The reunion was bittersweet. The kids grilled Ellen on past mistakes, sparking debates. Was it right to forgive? One asked. Roscoe pondered. Forgiveness had cost him peace but granted closure. That night, around the dinner table, stories flowed: Mike's nonprofit successes, Roscoe's final book on ethical dilemmas of queer life. But tension arose when Ellen questioned their parenting. In our day, it was different. Mike defended fiercely. And wrong. The argument highlighted unresolved divides, generational, moral. Roscoe mediated, drawing from his own choices. We all paid prices for truth. As health declined, Roscoe reflected on trade-offs: fame for privacy, love for pain. In his last months, back in New York, Roscoe dictated memoirs, emphasizing internal conflicts. The ultimatums that broke and mended bonds, societal judgments that forced awakenings. Mike cared for him. Their love deepened by adversity. Ellen visited often, making amends through actions, funding scholarships in Roscoe's name. The end came peacefully, surrounded by family. At the memorial, speakers debated his legacy. Trailblazer or agitator? Mike's eulogy captured it. He chose authenticity, no matter the cost. The twins, inspired, vowed to continue the fight. Years later, the family gathered annually, honoring Roscoe. But questions lingered in quiet moments. Did forgiveness heal or enable? Mike, older now, pondered aloud to Ellen. Was it all worth it? She smiled sadly. Love always is. In the end, was it right to forgive those who caused irreparable harm? Or does true justice demand accountability without reconciliation?